And welcome back to another episode of Psychic Evolution. I'm Jamie Clark.
And I'm Maggie Clark, and this is a podcast where you discover the psychic potential within to empower yourself and manifest your psychic and mediumship gifts. And today we are so honored to bring a very, very special guest to my heart onto our podcast today. Adele Leas is one of my instructors for Jin Shin Jyutsu, and she has been an inspiration for me for working with animals. And she also is the first instructor I ever got to work with who led me on a path to actually studying Jin Shin Jyutsu and becoming a practitioner, not only for humans, but also for animals. So she has been a huge inspiration for me on my own personal healing journey. And also with every animal that I touch, I feel her in my heart. So I'm so happy and excited. Adele, welcome.
Thank you. Boy, it's fun to be here with you. What a great reunion.
I know. It's been years. I mean, I started, oh my gosh, it was 2011 when I took my first class with you at Best Friends Animal Sanctuary in Kanab, Utah. And it was right after my mentor had passed, and I was devastated, a little lost, and trying to figure out what to do with myself. And that class was like, oh my God, this is it. I need to be a practitioner of Jin Shin Jyutsu. And it inspired me to just go for it. And within a year, I was practicing Jin Shin Jyutsu. Well, certifiably so.
I love
Definitely
it.
was practicing a little before that, but yes.
Oh, I remember that class clearly. And it was, Best Friends is such a beautiful sanctuary. And we had class sometimes out in that amphitheater with those huge towering red rocks. And it just made the
Yes.
energy all the sweeter.
Yes. Now, Adele, you have been working with animals for, my gosh, over 30 years, probably longer. What got you interested in Jin Shin Jyutsu, and what was your personal journey to really learn this beautiful healing art and then teach it across the world? Because right now you're teaching, oh my gosh, in Canada, in Europe, South Africa, Brazil, and the United States. I mean, you're all over the map and all bringing Jin Shin Jyutsu for animals across the globe. So what got you really into this journey?
That was such a beautiful introduction, and my answer is not very classy, but I guess we can be honest. How about chronic doggy diarrhea? Yeah, that just about sums it up. I got into the work myself in 1989. I was in a drowning accident, and I was brought back to life. My fiance passed, and I lost a third of my lungs. And I just wasn't responding well to Western medicine. And a friend gave me a gift certificate to this thing I couldn't pronounce. And so, with my infinite wisdom, I actually called to try to get the money back because I thought it sounded hokey. And I was an actor back then, and I needed the money. But they didn't want to give me the money. They said I should come for a session. All right, I went. Well, from that day on, I don't believe a day has ever gone by that I haven't done self-help Jin Shin Jyutsu to balance my own body, mind, spirit. It set me on a road that led me back to real health, but I had this sick collie dog. I got him after the drowning, and he was a fabulous sidekick because I was sad, and I would cry, and he would wag, and he would lick the tears. He just loved all that salty water. And it is very hard to keep crying when someone is so excited about it. So
Right.
he was, he was really, he was such a spirit guide, such a loving, compassionate, non-judgmental energy force. But he had this chronic diarrhea. So I spent just all the money I had going to different specialists and tried a whole lot of, different herbs and um, oils and organic diets and homeopathy. And if it was out there, I tried it. And we'd get a little better for a little while, and then it would get worse. And then we'd go back to the Western doctor. They'd give me the antibiotics. It would be great for 10 days, and then it would be worse. So this went on for about 3 years, during which time I was learning and practicing Jin Shin Jyutsu and became a practitioner for humans over in New Orleans. But my dog was still sick. And at the first class I ever went to, they talked about safety energy lock 8. Safety energy lock being a energetic being, an energy building block of the body. And safety energy lock 8 kind of lives behind the knees and came into the universe. I love this meaning: rhythm, strength, peace, magic. When I first heard that, I thought, that's real pretty. I have no idea what to do with it. And then I was with a teacher who said, when you find your own rhythm, it will show you what your strengths are. When you know what your strengths are, it will give you peace. And peace is magic.
Beautiful.
Nice.
Also helps with elimination, just like plumbing. Right to tighten, left to loosen. And so immediately I raised my hand and I said, does it work with dogs? And the instructor said, well, it helps cats. Okay. I went home and I held it for, about that long. And this lifetime project did not blow away. So I knew I didn't have the energy. I didn't have the knowledge. I wasn't able to help him. And I didn't for a couple years because I didn't trust myself. Yeah, that's what it comes down to. I didn't trust myself.
What became the catalyst of consciousness for that to change for you?
I now had a human practice in New Orleans. I had one day when we did something called the bladder flow. Everybody who came in needed the bladder flow. Listened to the pulses, did the bladder flow. It was a Tuesday. I finished early on Tuesday to take Amitai for his acupuncture, which he hated. Hated the car ride, hated the needles, hated the metal table, but it would help for about 3 or 4 days. That day, the most obedient dog in the world refused to get in the car.
Nice.
And that was it. I was like, okay, my darling, I'm with you. We're going to do this. I put my hands on him to the best of my ability. When I was wrong, he would move his body under my hands. And I said, okay, here's what we're going to do for the next 30 days. We're going to do this every day. And mommy is not going to be a jerk about it. I don't need to record it. I don't need to have opinions about it. Just be.
Do it.
Just get on the floor and be with my big boy. And that was it.
And then 30 days later?
About 20 days later, really, but we kept doing it for 30.
Yeah.
It just changed. And I'm not saying we never had that pattern again, but we could break it.
Beautiful.
And my clients started saying, well, wait, what finally happened? Why is he better? And so that's how suddenly there were horses and birds and turtles and cats. Cats were a challenge.
Always, right? They have a mind of their own.
Yeah. But they like it when you crawl on the ground and serve them.
Yes. It's called buttering them up for Jin Shin Jyutsu, right? You're my master for the moment.
Always.
Yes.
Now, in working with such a connection, were you and are you able to channel that beautiful fur baby who graduated life? Can they help you from the other side to work on those beautiful fur babies in every way.
I think so. I have a couple different darlings who hang out. I
Yeah.
had an Arab horse with a very, very sweet connection for 9 years. And she passed about 2 years ago, but she's often with me. She was very wise. And and I feel her energy right here at the base of my skull.
I like her calling card. That's good.
Yeah,
Hey, you
and
know it's me.
yeah, exactly. And most often she says, slow down.
Oh my God. Take a breath, right?
Exactly.
And we listen.
Exhale.
You're right. And can you let go of the expectation? Can you just be there? And with such a good coach, who am I to do anything but comply? You know?
Right.
And in such a natural way of communication.
Yeah,
That's beautiful.
yeah. I've studied animal communication a fair bit, and but for me, when my hands are on, it's it's like a microphone. I just hear more once I'm hands on.
Excellent.
Yeah, I find that to be true for myself as well. I always love how when I can't, oh, there was this beautiful experience of working with this little dog, and it was a hyper little dog, like lots and lots of anxious energy. And you know how patient you have to be when you're working with animals. You just have to wait until they can like open and receive and, settle a little bit. And as soon as this dog settled, it was like her whole demeanor opened up and I saw a different dog altogether. Like the regality, the essence of the divine flowing through them, it like rises to this surface. And if you listen and if you hear through your hands and through your being, you literally are connecting to their soul. And
Absolutely.
it's the most powerful experience I've ever had working with anyone. And it always seems like with animals, it's so effortless. It's what we're supposed to be expressing as our soul selves.
Right.
And once they relax, they can just allow that to kind of come forward.
Yeah. The reason I love to work in the rescue situations is because these little, I call them little ones, sometimes they're, you know, massive, but these beings don't always know how they got there, don't always know what's going to happen to them. They're, and you can see that they're not there. You can't feel them, and they're not going to get adopted until they can show who they are.
Yeah.
And so that process you just described of this hyper, or scared or closed down or starved, or when that being feels that someone is listening to who they are, then they show themselves. And I always tell them that is the best way to get a couch of their own. You know?
Yes. How beautiful. How beautiful. Now, when you teach, are you teaching primarily in refuge situations when you're teaching Jin Shin Jyutsu for animals?
Yes and no. In America, usually it's in refuges. Um, Thankfully, since Best Friends really opened that first no-kill sanctuary in America over 25 years ago, now that terminology, that concept is huge. But we still put down about 850,000 animals a year, dogs and cats, let's say. So it's my druthers to work in the refuges because, well, my goal is always to get at least one baby adopted during a class. Pure
Yes.
manipulation. But
I love that. It's a
and
beautiful goal.
and then in different countries, in Europe particularly, they don't have the overpopulation with pets, at least not in Northern Europe. So there are refuges, specifically like in the Netherlands, where they bring animals up from Turkey or places like that. But by and large, there I work where people often bring their dogs to class, and then we're at a farm or something as well. So we have horses, cows, pigs, goats.
Nice.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So tell us a little bit how this works. How does Jin Shin Jyutsu work when you are wanting to heal, say, your pet or your animal, or if you want to offer comfort to animals that are in rescue situations? How would you begin that journey?
Ooh, what a great question. How long we got?
As long as
Long
you
as you
like.
would like.
so, so it's a funny thing. One thing that differs about Jin Shin Jyutsu than many other energy modalities is that we consider that we are an aspect of harmonizing, but not per se a healer, except for ourselves. Because we look at it and say healing is an individualized expression of the self, of the soul. What we can do is facilitate the harmonizing of another being. So it starts with the self. It starts with that exhale. In Jin Shin Jyutsu, we talk about you're never in disharmony because of what you lack, but what you haven't let go of. And therefore, even though inhaling is great and I'm all for us all doing it, but the exhale is where the transformations happen. So in Jin Shin Jyutsu, we think about, of course, we don't really begin or end with the breath, but we think about starting with the exhale, exhaling down the front of the body, out the feet, letting go. And then when you're ready, inhale up the back, up the spine, over the head, let it wash down and become an exhale. So a never-ending cycle. So I kind of, the expression that comes to mind right now is the fools rush in where angels fear to go. So when someone really wants to heal their animal, what we got to do is get them out of their way.
Right.
Bring them into their breath, which I normally often do with folks by having them hold their fingers, because you can harmonize every cell of the body through holding the fingers, and it corresponds to what we call the organ flows of the body, the pathways of energy, and it also corresponds to the attitudes. And in Jin Shin Jyutsu, when we speak about the attitudes, we mean anything that distances us from peace. And so I love that, because we talk about worry, fear, anger, sadness, and trying tos. The easy way to remember that is hold your thumb to get rid of worry fast. F-A-S-T. Fear, anger, sadness, trying tos. So I encourage people to take 3 breaths. Not even take. How about receive? Receive 3 breaths as they hold each finger. I like to do it here, center of the breastbone, because that is back to those safety energy locks we talked about. Safety energy lock 13, unconditional love, and the key to the exhale. Because when you exhale everything you don't need, the only thing that's going to be left is love.
Isn't that beautiful?
So I like to anchor here and go through that. Once people have done that, I encourage them to connect with the animal. And how that starts, people, they get ideas and they want to go in and they want to put their hands on, and they think they're going to maybe put their hands on harder. That'll help more. No, 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 because we are not the doers. We are the facilitators. So I talk about having unneedy hands and sinking in. And okay, this is Carmen. She is a Portuguese water dog, about 11 years old. Rescued her about 6 years ago, or she rescued me, depends on the verbiage. I could do Jin Shin Jyutsu on her all day long and it wouldn't be enough. But if you're working on somebody who's new to the idea, you better start with petting. You better start with connecting. Otherwise, they're going to go, I don't know what's wrong with this one. She doesn't even know how to pet. You know,
Right.
you got to get some street creds, you know.
Yeah.
And but then you can let one hand slow down on one of these safety energy locks. After a little while, maybe the next one slows down. In the beginning, you may only be working for 2 or 3 minutes. You know, say you get a new puppy. They're probably not going to do this for an hour. So you want to increase your chances of success, so do it when they're tired. I don't make a lot of rules. If they want to chew on their bone or their Kong or have their blanket with them or whatever, all of that's allowed. And you just offer a little at a time. And I try to make it like my old piano teacher used to say, end on a good note.
Yes.
It's a cumulative art. If you offer this day in and day out, then when you have to take them to the vet or, you know, something scary, then they're going to go, oh, I know this. Mom or Dad, they're doing that thing. They're telling me everything's going to be all right.
Yeah. Beautiful. And it truly is just the art of being. You know, it's not about the doing. And we just live in a culture where we want to help so much and our hearts are so big. And we feel if we could just do something, it would make us feel better. And I think that is the hardest thing to communicate to clients and to owners of pets, is that this isn't about you getting in there and fixing anything. This isn't about you know, manipulating anything that's happening. This is just offering this beautiful space where your dog is going to choose to heal or choose to harmonize that energy. And you just allow that to be. And it's a different approach. And it's one of the most beautiful approaches, and why Jin Shin Jyutsu is my favorite healing modality, is because there's no force. There's no doing. It's an art of just learning how to be yourself, and then learning how to respect and be with an animal just naturally.
And of course,
everything
sometimes,
flows.
yeah. And of course, sometimes they are our darlings. They are our family. And they have these, we think, short lifespans. And we would do anything in the world to change that. And I think that's there's so many things with this art that can help sometimes allow life to be longer or be richer or be less painful. And it can help when the transition comes.
Yeah. I must say that in and of itself was amazing, because shortly after, maybe a couple years after I first, started working with animals using Jin Shin Jyutsu, one of my boxers was crossing over in the middle of the night, and I had made the decision the day before, like, tomorrow's the day. I know I have to let him go because he was just struggling a little bit. And he ended up, having a seizure and passing in my arms. And I immediately recalled instantaneously the first time I broke down crying in your class was when you mentioned safety energy lock 4 at the base of the skull. that, you know, came into the universe, meaning measuring intelligence, letting in air, light, and consciousness. And I remember just holding that safety energy lock for Mickey, being with him in this beautiful transformational phase of his life. And when he passed, what I saw in my mind sight was like this lotus flower opening up from that safety energy lock, and all of the magic of his essence just sparkling into the universe. And it was just the most precious and magical moment I have ever had with a dog, just being there to help his crossing. So Jin Shin Jyutsu was one of those things. When I heard about it, I cried because I was like, I wish I had known this when my mentor passed, you know, like, why wasn't I thinking about, you know, why didn't I know this? And I could have done something and I could have helped. And of course I was going to the doing thing, you know, being human.
Sure.
But then when it actually came to being present during that beautiful moment, it was the most magical way to help a dog cross over.
Right. So that makes me think of, I told you already a little bit about my Arab horse who passed a little bit ago. And I was with her and she passed in my arms. And a few days later, I was doing some self-help. She went as beautifully as she could, but that didn't mean I was in good shape. And I was lying on the couch and holding the base of my skull, safety energy lock 4, like you just mentioned, the window, allowing in light and air that represents knowledge and consciousness, which is why we say when the window closes, when consciousness is gone, the soul has left the body. But so I'm lying on the couch doing this, and I was kind of wiped out, and I fell asleep and or did something else. And next thing I knew, in a split instant, it felt like I was on her back. And I was riding. And it was so gentle. She was so smooth. And we were just riding along, and I could hear her. I've listened to some of your podcasts, and you talk about the different clairs. So for me, the clair is I hear them. I hear them inside my head. And I heard, Mommy, look what I can do. And, you know, she was a 30-year-old. I asked nothing of her. But now she was taking this little jump over. I'm like, oh, that's so sweet, honey. And then we went along, just look at this, Mommy, and a little bit higher. And then she said, yeah, but look what else. And then she ba-dum, and we were in the air. And I was under her. And it was just, she was free.
How beautiful. Oh,
yeah.
my goodness.
And I have no idea how long that all went on. At some point, I kind of moved my hands, and I thought, oh, it seems that I'm on the couch, But it was, that was the greatest gift she could ever give me.
Beautiful.
And you found yourself within the experience. You didn't lose yourself to it. That must have been so healing in such a powerful way.
Yeah.
Have you noticed in any way that maybe different locations might affect the dynamics of what you're doing? Like maybe Sedona, because it's an amplified energy, or other places that might have different value points in what they're perceived as? Apparently we struck a chord. That's good.
Well, because I tend to work in some pretty wild places that other people would not necessarily choose. But so for 7 years, I was part of a program called the Unconditional Love Program, where we took dogs from my refuge into a medium security prison. And we matched the dogs up with the men, and they trained them in basic obedience, but also in Jin Shin Jyutsu. And
Beautiful.
the men, in order to be in the program, they had to practice Jin Shin Jyutsu, which didn't come easily. I mean, and I didn't knock on wood, I hadn't been in prison before I started going to this program. So I had no idea when I said to these men, and now let's all close our eyes. Everybody in the room just went like
Yeah, exactly. One eye open.
right. I quickly changed gears and I said, or bring your focus inward.
Very good.
So I would have to say, and I must tell you, it was my favorite work I've ever done in my life.
Wow.
As time went on, we got yoga mats, and these men would lie down and do main central themselves, and then work on the dogs. And so, yeah, I work in pretty rough places a lot of the times. A lot of these refuges, I work in a lot of shelters. So I find that the breath can transform it all.
And it seems like the effectiveness is that your life experience, because more than likely things aren't always happy for them when they're in those locations, but yet the animals responded. I do quantum healing and a variety of other things, but it's been affected that there is no effect. It doesn't matter what mood you're in. You're just the facilitator. Each person heals themselves. Because it's such a natural vibe, and especially for Carmen, just laying there, just relaxing.
Yeah.
And, for me, it's a big thing because of that unconditional acceptance both ways.
Yeah.
We just have to be us, yet they love us for who we are. Do you think that there's maybe more open receptivity because of that dynamic as connected to humans in animals?
I always say in my classes, I have never had an animal say to me, does it work if you don't believe in
it? Exactly.
But in addition, look at what was happening. That beautiful fur baby was communicating with you.
Right.
Hello, in English. There's a lot of languages, yet understood effectively what was going on, and in a conscious way to go, hey, you're talking with me like you're conscious of everything.
Right.
Because that was unique to me to go, how, and especially with animals or little babies who didn't necessarily make it here, to get those vibrational patterns on the ear nubs that would train yourself to hear the patterns and apply meaning, able to come through so effortlessly and effectively to communicate with us like adults in English. And so it's really interesting to see the different aspects of that.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it's just a vehicle. We're all soul prints of consciousness. That's just, you want to be human or an animal or an insect or, whatever.
Right.
It's just a vehicle to house your soul.
Right.
So it's that kind of an experience in a spiritual way that seems like it's amping up your soul. It's connecting you more with your own awareness of the universe, of other ways of working with it.
Absolutely.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And isn't it funny, like, what belief systems do animals really have, or do they? And then is that our work here on this planet, just to like get out of our own way, to like stop listening to what it is that we think we know, what it is that we believe, and just learning how to be?
Yeah. 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 Oh boy. Yeah. It's an interesting question you pose. Just, what are their belief systems? And yet, and I don't know that answer. I wouldn't, and why would it be one answer any more than it is for humans? However, I do see levels of love, of commitment, of loyalty, of abilities to be in the moment and abilities to be happy and to persevere and to evolve, to change, where they leave us all in the dust.
Mm-hmm. Greatest teachers right there.
Greatest teachers. Yeah.
So do you want to do a little bit of demonstration on Carmen for us?
Sure. You ready, princess? Sure.
And for our audio listeners, we're going to have a link in the show notes for the YouTube recording of this if you want to watch this on YouTube as well.
And in addition, we'd love to see who those pictures are.
Sure. So hopefully, this is Mary Burmeister. Mary Burmeister is the person who brought Jin Shin Jyutsu to the West in the 1950s. We have no record of her working with the animals. However, this is special for you, Maggie. This is a boxer puppy. And here she is holding those safety energy locks. 13, center of the breast, unconditional love. And 25, we have a little safety energy lock 25 right here, if you can see it. Safety energy lock,
Beautiful.
energetic building block of the body, the size of your hand, if it's on a human, the person you're working on, or, I know, what other dog would let you do this? Or their paw. So it's a sphere of energy the size of her paw. Safety energy lock 25 came into the universe, meaning gently and calmly regenerate and rejuvenate. And it's bam, right there on her sits bone, which doesn't quite show.
That brings up an interesting point. Like you have that number, because that number in color looks like it correlates to certain information and vibrations of information. Can you put a mental intent within the molecular, in this case within the animal, and let it vibe with that new intent, just like you're doing for Safety Lock 25 or any of those? Can you just do that energy-wise, and is there a recognizable difference that they still are affected with it?
I mean, in terms of a difference, every being's going to resonate differently with it. But the way I work is as I'm holding specific safety energy locks, I am saying the prayer or the meditation of that energy lock, of that energetic building block of the body. So it's not exotic. It's just, may you feel the energy to gently and calmly regenerate and rejuvenate as we share this time together.
And can you put that intent to affect other areas of the body just by
Sure,
unifying that intent?
sure, because just like with the hand, I'm sorry, I took my hand off. Every
That's unique. It's usually the other way around.
Yeah, no, I had put my hand on with that energy that we were going to share a little mini session, and then I took my hands off. Yeah. Okie dokie. They do learn, huh? Sure, it is
Yes, we do.
connected to every other cell of the body. Absolutely. So because if I was only helping her sits bone, that wouldn't be bad. That could help regenerate all kinds of arthritis and situations like that. But in fact, that energy can go to the whole body. And this gets more into different levels of the work. But Safety Energy Lock 25 connects to the two organ function energies of the heart and the small intestine. So there's a level of digestion and a level of energy to the heart muscle, and then the pathways that those both connect to. I jumped topic.
No, that was perfect. By giving them a new path of energy, do they usually accept that? Do they usually allow themselves to heal themselves with those different intents that you send and share?
Again, it's such an individualized experience.
And with Carmen? How about
with Carmen? With Carmen, she came to me as a quite sick dog. She was starved. She was part of a hoarding situation. She was about 18 pounds less than she is now. And once we got her home and had adopted her, very soon thereafter, we found out she had gum cancer and she had a Western procedure removing 4 or 5 teeth and a whole part of her gum. She's a slow eater now. Worked. It is a kind of cancer, they told me, that does not come back.
Excellent.
So we've just watched her get younger and younger and happier. And, now I think we're demonstrating contentment in this particular pose. But
that's awesome.
We had about a mile and a half little jog this morning, and she can just do that fine. Uh,
Excellent.
yeah, yeah. Anyway, what I didn't finish, I don't know if it shows all that well. Should I bring this closer to the camera?
Yeah, if you would, that would be great, please. Looks like it is
I'm coming back.
very well experienced.
Ooh, the ring light. Hold on.
Oh, interesting.
Let's get rid of
It's
that
the
for the moment.
elephant.
This is an L.
Oh,
Oh,
Now,
beautiful.
the okay, there is that right?
Perfect.
Okay.
Yep, you
yeah.
got it.
So this is a semi-habituated elephant that I got to spend a fair amount of time with in South Africa. And semi-habituated means that he's not in a zoo, he's not contained, he roams free with his partner and their children. They do have humans that follow them, that guard them, because they are a little too used to humans, and they come. They are part of a wonderful thing called the Elephant University over there, and they come every day around 11 o'clock, and they get some really good horse feed, which they love, so they come back every day. The guides there get to teach people about elephants, and it's all part of a campaign to try to save these magnificent beings.
Is it individualized, or with each species, are they affected differently? Does it sometimes take longer for elephants because it's a bigger energy, or it really doesn't matter? How does that work?
What happens with elephants is you only work on the parts you can reach. You
Right,
know?
right, yeah.
So this fellow had an earache when I was there, and they were proposing that I hop up on a ladder and climb in a tree and work on his ear. And I said, I'm going to use places closer to the ground that are connected to the ear.
Yes.
And thus I am.
Excellent.
Yeah, that was a lot easier.
Absolutely, right?
Yeah,
And allow
yeah,
them to naturally integrate that vibe
yeah,
and then heal themselves. That's
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah. And he does interact with a large herd out in nature, but he loves this. He loves being a teacher, and he comes in 7 days a week. He has for 25 years. The rest of
Nice.
his original herd was culled when he was very young, and he and this other elephant were saved by mistake, but they were saved. And then people said, no, 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 we're going to do whatever it takes to save them to these two. And they're doing a lot of work to try to save the planet.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Have you been able to put an energy vibe within that beautiful animal, and they're able to go back, like for the elephants, to help harmonize the herd, or for the dogs to help harmonize the packs more? Is that able to work that way, or could you share?
You know, I don't know that I can give you a number, an exact how it worked, but absolutely. So when I'm at the refuge where I'm on staff, Aliqua, when I work out there, I'll often work in a centralized location so that other dogs that I won't necessarily get to, or whatever species it is, can pick up harmony coming from the experience from the session I may be working on with one animal.
Yeah.
And when I have my classes out there, for instance, the staff always love it, because in the beginning they came running in at one point and they were like, "Oh my gosh, we thought the dogs got loud." And we were like, why would you think the dogs got out? No, no one's barking. And so that it does kind of spread this little, if you work in the stable on a rainy day, you work on one horse and everybody else is hanging out over the stall door, just kind of enjoying it
Checking
all.
out the vibe.
Yeah,
Yeah, like
Yeah.
humans, a person could walk in the room and shift the energy of the room. That's why I
exactly.
was curious in such a natural way. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And have you ever picked up information from that beautiful fur baby or whoever you're working with about the owners in some way? Was there any insight that you gained that maybe, you were able to work with or at least become aware of?
It is my practice in an ideal situation that I work on the human first so that they have an understanding and I can kind of get a gauge on who they are and what's going on. And no one's going to bring their animal to me for this work if they aren't committed and loving of their animal.
Yeah.
But sometimes they can put too many expectations on them. Particularly if
Yeah.
it's around that topic, like we said, that topic of letting go. If the animals could just choose, I'm sure they'd stay forever. But nobody gets away from me without homework. I was raised by public school teachers. So at the least, they get fingers to hold. And at the most, they get safety energy locks for themselves and then for their animals, because it is a cumulative art. So,
Yeah.
and I'll just, in case those that do tune in on to see it, I'll just give you a real quickie. This is Safety Energy Lock 10, the key to the receiving, limitless outpouring of the life force. How's that for beautiful? And
We
that,
love that.
yeah, that is here, right? You can't really see it on there, but we're going right to the center of her shoulder blades.
Right in
I'm
between the withers.
I'm
Exactly.
noticing that numbers have different colors. Is there a reason for that?
Yes, that corresponds to the depths of the body. Depths of the body are another way to think about aspects of our being. And it's like building first depth, skin surface, second depth, deep skin, third depth, blood, fourth depth, muscle, fifth depth, bone. So this 25 relates to helping bones as well as heart and small intestine. See, this is why you can't do it wrong, because everything's
Yeah,
Right.
connected.
excellent. Yeah, right.
Second depth, not as bright, not as interesting a color on this dog, but second depth is white. And the 13, come here, princess. Again, don't try this at home. Okay. So, I mean, you can just slide your
That's
hand in
awesome.
here. You don't need to pick up the leg. But I'm just sandwiched between the center of the breastbone and the center of the withers. And it is that, I call it the initial centering hold. When an animal comes in for a session, you can have the full human discussion about it's based in the breath and exhale down the front and inhale up the back. But it may not be the most effective way of getting that message across. I find that this is the most effective way. I'm putting my hands on. Oh, you're going to show us? Thank you. Okay. We lost her head. Okay. And I can hang out here. I can't tell you how many times this in itself is the whole session I do.
Being in that vibe, have you, while you're doing that, received spiritual information or insight about your own life? A different way of maybe seeing or dealing with things.
Well, what a great question. I'll give you a specific from this girl, actually.
Cool.
So the first time I like I said, I work at this refuge. I got a call, really big hoarding case. Come on out. 39 dogs. They're all in the barn. Everybody's in bad shape. Got out there. Before I went into the barn, I could smell the ear infection. I'm like, oh, somebody is profoundly sick. Walked to the farthest end, last cage, and there was this one whose name was Lily at the time. we have to call them something. So sometimes they're all L names. We got Lavender, we got Lily, we got Lulu, we got Lucy. Okay. And it isn't always who they are,
L for
but
love.
so I took her out partly because the ears were so bad. I took her out under a tree so I could share a session with her. And she responded just like this. It was ridiculous. She went down like a lump, and she loved every minute. And I could feel the pulses. I could feel the gurgles. She was so there. And at the end of the session, it was just so sweet. I think I said it right out loud. I said, "Oh my gosh, you're so wonderful. Who are you?" And just like that, bam, I heard it. And with great dignity and clarity, I heard, "My name is Carmen, and I'm yours." I'm like, "Ooh, I better get working on this."
Oh, wow.
So then you got to
So
come
she
home.
chose you.
Oh, yeah, you got to come home and you got to talk to the partner and talk to the other dog and talk to the cat. And anyway, she was right.
While doing that, have you ever been activated with your own psychic abilities? Whether maybe you were starting to see things more in your mind or feel things in a stronger vibe?
Yeah, I think that's all part of that for me. I don't know if I can differentiate specifics because it's coming from my hands. Tend to feel like get more about them than I do specifically messages for myself. On the flip side, since this work as such didn't exist before Amitai had elimination issues, I feel like every time I get those vibes about them, it strengthens my knowing of why I incarnated.
Beautiful.
Seems like she already knew her knowing. I'm yours.
Yeah, she didn't have to take a lot of time. But yeah, let's see if we can bring her head back. Hi, thank you. Okay.
So it looks like you're holding Safety Energy Lock 25 and Safety Energy Lock 23.
Oh, she's so good. There's our 23.
There we go.
Yes,
Yep.
that is the base of the rib. I'll put it on the side so you can see it a little more. And you still can't see it. She's very fluffy. Okay. Base of the ribs in the back. Controller of our destiny. And that combination, 23, 25, I think that goes to the question you were asking about seeing our psychic pathway. Why are we here? Controller of our destiny. And it's interesting, particularly with horses, I notice. The 23 is exactly where the saddle lies. And how often are those gorgeous beings controlled by who's sitting in the saddle?
Right.
And then the other one like that is the 21 up here at the base of our cheekbone. Mental peace. And again, it's where we put the bridle or where we put a muzzle.
Right.
And so sometimes it's harder for the animals to accept those safety energy locks, but when they do, there's a huge transformation.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And you get the pulses, but do you intuitively feel other areas that might be even more effectively worked on?
Sure. So sometimes I body read. I just literally look at this being and see where they're holding. And then sometimes I put hands on and you feel different temperature changes. You feel congestion. But because there are connections to the attitudes, who are they when they present themselves? Oh, are we? Okay. Oh, I'm ready for my close-up. yeah, they're sending you info on all these different levels. But again, I keep going back to you cannot do this work wrong because everything is connected. And so
Right.
if you get out of the way and place your hands on in love without judgment and connected to your breath, it will lead to harmony. And then sometimes it's later on that you get the aha of what they were telling you, or the owner calls and said, do you know that they did this after that? One of the more interesting cases I've worked with recently at the refuge, I guess it was about a year ago, we had a very sweet little doodle come in, and he was a puppy. People like to go spend thousands of dollars on these expensive designer puppies who are often very wild and wound up, and the people then give them to refuges. And we got this little boy, this little guy, because he ate the socks of the children who lived in the family, and he got an obstruction.
Oh, gosh.
So they took him to the vet and told the vet to put him down. The vet called us
Oh,
and said, he is wonderful and we don't want to put him down. And we ran out there and picked him up and brought him to the refuge. And I started working on him because he was confused and troubled, and also a very wound up little guy who ate everything, So I just give them a bone and let him chew while I'm working on him. Started working on him, and they said, his people said he never listened. Well, when he got here, a big metal thing had fallen right next to him, and he didn't react. And they said, you know what? He didn't listen because he's deaf.
oh my goodness.
Okay. So I did some flows to help other things, really. And then I went back in a few days to work on him, and I noticed a change. And a car backfired out on the road, out in front, and he turned. So after I went to the medical building and I said, hey, is he on antibiotics or something? Did they think there's an ear infection? Could that? And they said, no, but we've noticed he's been hearing things a little bit since your first session. Oh, then I was on it. Oh my gosh. So
Yeah.
then I'm working the flows that are going to affect hearing. And what we found was that he'd been yelled at a lot. And I think he was so closed down, he stopped hearing because he was scared to.
Mm-hmm.
And over the next weeks, he opened up and he started to hear the women caregivers, but he wouldn't hear the men. And then there
Right.
was one guy who just loved him so much, and he just sat in his cage and he talked to him for so long that this dog decided, okay, I'm going to hear you. But he responded so well to Jin Shin Jyutsu. I went to the founder of our refuge and I said, can I send an email out to all of my students first? Because I would love him to be in a home where he got this work. And she said, sure. And I did. And better than the best, actually, one of my faculty adopted him. So I drove
Oh,
him
nice.
halfway to Kentucky and she came down, and he now has, she figures, about 85% hearing.
Excellent.
I love that. That's so
Isn't it
beautiful.
nice when they help themselves?
Yeah.
We're just a catalyst. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you got the
Just
power. You can do
exactly.
this.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, for our listeners that are like, oh my gosh, how can I share this with my animals? How can they learn how to do this for their animals? Tell us about some of your classes and programs.
Sure. So it's not exotic. As Maggie can tell you, you could study for a whole lifetime and not master it. However, you can go put your hands on your darling right now, and they will teach you. Start
Absolutely.
center of the breastbone and center of the shoulder blade. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Thank you. Mwah.
Beautiful
Um,
teamwork.
and work on yourself first, center your breath. Then, if you go to my website, which is very exotic, jsjforyouranimal.com, foryouranimal.com, I have a whole bunch of videos listed there. YouTube, I have videos. Instagram, I have videos. Facebook, I have
Cool.
some. Not that I'm good on all those things, but I'm working on it. But I also
Right.
have on the website, I have webinars, 2-hour webinars that you can purchase on specific topics like aging with your animals and first aid and bringing a new animal into the home, things like that.
Beautiful,
Then I have
beautiful.
in-person classes, again, all listed on my website, as do my faculty. Right now, they're in the US and planned in Europe, and hoping to get back to Africa and South America. And then I have online classes in a longer format on the Teachable platform, and we'll be starting another one of those just after the new year. And that goes
Cool.
really in depth, and then you have like 35 videos and access to them for a year. And we do Zoom classes with it, so we practice together and answer questions.
Oh,
Cool.
beautiful, beautiful.
So
So we'll have a link in the show notes to your website as well so people can find that material and start looking into Jin Shin Jyutsu.
fantastic. And there is, like Maggie said, there are beautiful classes for humans, both self-help and for humans to work on other humans. And that would be at Jin Shin Jyutsu Spirit, Mind, Body.
Cool.
Absolutely, yes.
So,
And I do as well teach some Jin Shin Jyutsu self-help classes in the Phoenix area that you can find as well. We'll have a link in the show notes for the next one coming up. So,
beautiful.
yeah.
Thank you for all that you do, Adele.
Well, back at you. Oh my goodness, what fun.
I know, right?
I thought of one little thing that might might be fun for your listeners in closing, if that's all right.
Please.
It is a poem by Meister Eckhart, and as far as I've ever seen, it describes what Jin Shin Jyutsu is as much as I've ever heard. It goes like this: all day long, a little burro labors, sometimes with heavy loads on their back, and sometimes with worries about things that bother only burros. Once in a while, a kind monk comes to their stall and brings a pear. But more than that, he looks into the burro's eyes and he touches their ear. And for a moment, the burro is free and even seems to laugh, because love does that. Love frees.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much for joining us today, Adele. This was magical and beautiful. And thank you, Carmen, for being such an amazing
Yeah, you're
bugaboo.
awesome.
Bravo. Well,
That's great.
thank you both. What an honor. I love what you're doing. And I
Thank
think
you.
we better have an in-person reunion some which
Oh my
That
way.
would be
gosh.
excellent. Let's
We
do that.
absolutely need to. Absolutely.
I
Cool.
like it.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Yes.
We'll connect.
Oh, thank you,
Bye-bye.
Adele.
Lots of love.